Are you the kind of person that really likes the smell of the wood section at Home Depot? Well, buckle up, this one here is for you. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Off, and I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances, and this is a practical review of Arso by Profumum Roma. These reviews are for fragrances that I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and I meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, but I don't really like to go into details about notes, and of course, I don't think that they help the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. I have to say that I'm very much in love with the brand of Profumum Roma. I really like their products, their concepts, their ideas, and I do think that overall they have an incredibly strong brand identity. They know who they are, they know what they're doing, and they know exactly the type of product they're putting out. But there might be a giant bias component to me liking the brand. After all, I was born in Rome and I lived there until my mid-30s, until I decided to finally move to Switzerland. So yes, the house of Profumum Roma really speaks to my heart. It really pulls on my heartstrings. Most of the products definitely revolve around Rome. The brand itself is massively inspired by the city. They pull a lot from the smells of the neighboring environment, of the neighboring countryside. There's so much of this environment in these fragrances. It's amazing. Rome is not only the hometown and the home base of Profumum Roma, it's its massive inspiration. Arso, in my opinion, is one of the best fragrances from the brand. It's actually also one of the most underrated and misunderstood. But before we talk about this fragrance, let me just tell you a little bit more about the brand of Profumum Roma, to put things into context, to really help you understand what type of fragrances these are, how they're constructed, how they're designed, because they're very, very specific. They're very different from a lot of other stuff on the market. The brand of Profumum Roma is a very small, family-run business, and they focus on pretty much single-note fragrances. They're fragrances which are super simple, very direct. They're pretty much focused on depicting one type of ingredient or one type of very selective, very specific sort of imagery. One of the best known fragrances from the brand is probably Acqua di Sale. That one is also actually one of my favorite fragrances of all time. It even made my top 10 list. It's absolutely gorgeous. It smells exactly like the seaside of Rome at that. It's very, very specific. But anyway, that fragrance is not a good depiction of the brand because yes, it's a marine fragrance. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward, but it has a lot of notes that make up that scent profile. Some other popular scents from the brand that are actually better at depicting what the house vibe is all about are stuff like Acqua Viva, which is straight up a lemon scent, which I love and I featured many times on the channel. Then we have stuff like Ambra Aurea, which is a fairly complex yet straightforward amber scent. Then we have Patchouli, which is straight up a patchouli scent. Then there's stuff like Sorriso, which is basically a very simplistic approach on dark chocolate. Again, the stuff is incredibly simple, incredibly straightforward, incredibly easy to understand. The beauty in these products is not necessarily found in the creative imagery or complex evolution. These scents don't really evolve, they don't really transition much. They're very, very straightforward. The beauty is found in the fine nuances, the fine details, and the way these single notes, these single ingredients, these single concepts are so delicately but boldly portrayed. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. Another particular thing about the house is that all of their products feature insanely high oil concentrations. We're talking about 35 to 40%. It's very, very high. We're way beyond extrait. And believe me, you can really tell these fragrances are thick, they're oily. And these are all actual oils in here. There are no weird boosting compounds that make up this percentage. You can really tell that these fragrances are natural, they're high quality, and they're very, very dense. This insane density really affects the wear experience of some products like Arso. This is a much more subdued, subtle, gentle, and delicate fragrance. Some other products, for whatever reason, seem to be immune from this despite being still in high oil concentration. Acqua di Sale projects like a madman, Ambra Aurea fills rooms, Sorriso can be smelled for miles. I'm not really sure what's going on, I'm not really sure what this is determined by, but when you spray this on, despite the very obvious oil puddle, you're not getting a lot of projection, you're not getting a lot of push. And I do feel that overall, surprisingly, this aspect of this fragrance really aids the scent profile. It really aids the overall wear experience. It makes it so beautiful, so subtle, and so unique. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I want to quickly touch upon the name of the fragrance because in my opinion, its name is a huge determining factor on why this fragrance, at least in my opinion, is so misunderstood. So what do I mean by misunderstood? Well, a lot of people associate this scent to winter. They associate it to a winter forest, a winter pine forest, a winter cabin, a winter fireplace, or a winter outdoors barbecue. This is really far from the truth, far from the actual inspiration of this fragrance. And it's fine. Fragrances are subjective. You are absolutely free to interpret any scent the way you want. It's absolutely great. But the reality is that this is actually not a winter scent. It's really not designed to emulate winter, snow, and pine forests, and barbecues, and cabins. And this is mostly due to the fact that Profumum Roma is first and foremost a brand from Rome. And Rome as a city is so far from being considered a winter place, a winter environment. There's not even a pine forest, or rather, there is a pine forest, but it's a very specific type of pine. It's a marine pine, not the Christmas tree pine. There's no snow, there's no barbecuing, there's no cabins, there's nothing of that. And as I said before, the brand is heavily inspired by everything which is around Rome. And going back to the name, Arso, a lot of people translate it as burnt. And yes, Arso in the Italian roots can also mean burn, but mostly it's referred to as dry, and it's associated to the type of dryness that you feel when you're extremely thirsty. So for example, the term arzura means being thirsty. It means being hot, being dry, being deprived of water. And this all checks out because Rome, especially in the summer, is an incredibly dry environment. Or rather, the air is very, very humid because, well, it's a humid place, but there's a lot of dryness. There's no rivers, there's no flowing water, there's nothing like that. Everything is just yellow and dry. And this arzura, this feeling of being thirsty, dry, and generally deprived of water is very typical of Rome. It's very typical of the pine forest outside of Rome, between Rome and the sea. And I already mentioned this when I talked about the scent in the various option segments. This scent is incredibly transportative. It brings me back to that forest. It brings me back to those evenings in summer with the cicadas, with that smell of resin, with the smell of heat. It's amazing. So the name Arso in this situation is not referring to being burnt or smoky. It's referring to being dry and deprived of water. Dry wood in the summer heat of Rome. This scent is absolutely amazing. But we're going to talk about the scent profile and wear experience after we cover the presentation. Presentation-wise, Profumum Roma products are very simple, very minimalistic, very straightforward, very, very utilitarian. I actually really like the bottle design. I really like the squared off design. It's pretty unique. Not many designers go for this edgy look. The bottle itself feels high quality. The glass feels nice. It just feels like a nice piece. These products, by the way, are not cheap, but we're going to get to that in a sec. What feels cheap is the cap. It's this flimsy piece of like plastic or very thin aluminum. You could probably squish it into shape with your fingers. It also has this kind of metal on metal scratchy sound when you put it on the atomizer. Not that appealing, not that great. The atomizer itself sprays really well. It does the job magnificently, but it does feel cheap. It feels like one of those atomizers from some sort of a hair product, like a hairspray. It just feels really cheap. It has this gummy, plasticky feeling. It's just not that luxurious, again, especially consider the price. But let's give this a couple sprays because I really like the scent profile. I actually want to top it off for the evening and I want to show you the atomization. I'll be spraying it on myself this time. Yeah, it has this clicky, crunchy, plasticky sound to it. Again, it's very reminiscent of cheap hair product bottles, just cheap atomizer bottles, and especially for the price, that's kind of disappointing. Overall, though, it does the job. It sprays a ton of liquid, it's easy to aim, it's pretty much faultless. An interesting thing about these bottles is that the atomizer comes apart. Actually, the bottle is delivered without the atomizer. It has a cap, and the atomizer is in the box separate. Another interesting, unique thing about the presentation is that inside each box you get this little roll-on vial. I'm not really sure how many mLs it is, 5 or 10, but it really shows that these fragrances are high in oil concentration. So much so that the brand itself is suggesting as an option for you to use it as a roll-on. Interestingly enough, in each box you also get a plastic pipette to really ease the transfer of the liquid from the bottle to this little vial. Overall, the presentation is super unique. There's really nothing else on the market like it, and it feels different, it feels special. The unboxing experience is really, really fun. Back to the presentation, back to the bottle. As I was saying, the glass is very clear, it's very beautiful. The bottle feels high quality, yet it has a little bit of an artisanal aspect. You can definitely pick up on some signs of the manufacturing. Really interesting stuff. What is nice though is the labeling. The labeling feels incredibly high quality, well painted on. I just like the font. I really like the brand identity in general. The house itself comes across as very planted. They definitely know what they are and who they want to be. The brand really never got any redesigns or changes. It's very, very stable throughout the decades. I do appreciate that. I do appreciate a predictable brand identity. When it comes to price though, Profumum Roma fragrances are a little bit difficult to recommend. They're actually quite pricey. For a 100 ml bottle like this, we're talking about $275 or more. It's not for the faint of heart. In a way, and this is also probably due to me really liking the brand, I do kind of feel that these fragrances are even worth it at retail because they do smell high quality. They do smell super unique. Nothing else on the market really smells like these. And given how dense they are, a bottle of 100 ml will last you a really long time. There's definitely worse ways to spend your money in fragrance world. Overall though, the fact that they're not really present at discounters, especially in Italy and in Switzerland, is kind of a bummer. I'm not really sure about the presence on the US market, but I heard Eloise Sens talking about getting these at a discounter at a significant price drop. So do your diligence, do your digging, find these at the best price possible. But now we talk about the scent profiling we're experiencing for Arso by Profumum Roma. What does this actually smell like? Well, the simplest way to put it, the easiest way to describe this scent is talk about wood. Everything wood. Cut wood, dry wood, wet wood, forest wood, even the wood aisle of a Home Depot, as I teased in my intro. This smells everything like a lumberjack. It's absolutely amazing and very, very straightforward, as I said before. Going back to what I teased in my intro, if you're the type of person that really likes the smell of the wood aisle at a Home Depot or other places like that, this scent is absolutely for you. It smells exactly like freshly cut wood, like wood shavings, like sawdust, like a sawmill, like a lumberjack house. It smells exactly like wood and everything wood related. Really, really amazing. I happen to really be enamored by that smell. I just like the smell of resinous wood, like freshly cut wood, like dry wood, like fireplace wood. Here in Switzerland, the houses are actually built from wood, and when you walk into a house, especially if you haven't walked into it in a while, you're really engulfed by the smell of wood. Now, I live in a wooden house currently, and I'm used to the smell, but every time I go on vacation and I come back, I'm like, wow, this house really smells amazing. I absolutely love the smell of wood, and this fragrance perfectly satisfies that craving. I also want to really underline how these products, how these scents really don't come across as perfumes. They come across more as smells. And this is also true for other fragrances by the house of Profumum Roma, specifically stuff like Acquaviva, which is very much a lemon smell. It replicates the idea of lemon. Also Acqua di Sale, which is a little bit more of a complex concoction, just straight up comes across as the smell of the ocean. So very strange things. They're not necessarily super wearable, or rather, they're not offensive at all. They're very beautiful, but they're a little bit abstract. They don't come across as likable whatsoever. These are very good replicas of an impression, of an inspiration, of a smell. This one here smells like wood, straight up. Simple, no frills, no gimmicks, no nothing. It smells like wood right off the bat as soon as you spray it on. It doesn't really transition or evolve into anything else. It just stays like that throughout the wear experience. It stays wood. This is the beauty of this fragrance. That being said, especially considering what this is inspired by, that pine forest outside of Rome, the pine forest between Rome and the sea, that pine forest that has so many nuances, so many details, so many smells, how can this be, in its simplicity, inspired by that? How can this be such a good replica of that place? Well, it all comes down to the fine details and fine nuances that I was talking about, the fine nuances that Profumum Roma is so good at portraying. As I said before, this is pretty much a wood scent throughout, but within its wood characteristics, within the scent itself, you have so many layers to uncover. This is the beauty of these fragrances. And this complex wood fragrance has quite the story to tell, at least to me. It really reminds me of the Roman summer evenings spent walking through this beautiful pine forest. The air is still very hot. There's a lot of residual heat from the daylight, but it's thick. It's dense, it's really hard to breathe, there's a lot of humidity, and yet you feel dry, you feel parched, you feel arzo, you feel arzura. Really, really interesting. And you're walking these paths, probably dressed in a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, and under your feet you're crunching up on dry pine needles. And you would classify the environment as quiet in general because from the city, compared to the city, it's a quiet environment. But in reality, it's full of sounds. You hear a lot of cicadas, especially in Rome, especially in the summer. So much so that I almost have PTSD because I associate the sounds of cicadas to heat, to that extreme unbearable heat, even at night. This scent really transports me to that environment, and all this residual heat is kind of baking this forest, and you're engulfed in this beautiful wood smell, full of nuances from the balsams, from the resins, from the green notes. Everything is literally evaporating around you, kind of steaming around you. It almost smells like an open air sauna of sorts. This all makes for an incredibly unique scent profile. When you smell this, you're basically picturing this giant wood plank, which is hot, it's steaming, it's radiating. And with the heat, it's also radiating woodiness and everything which is woody associated. Resins, balsam, beautiful green notes, everything is so evaporative. So I really don't understand how people associate this to winter. In winter, the smells tone down. In winter, everything stops, everything becomes frozen. And this is so warm, so lively, so enveloping. If anything, if I was forced to picture this in the winter, I'd probably think about something like a warm cabin interior, something like a cabin warmed up by a fireplace. And this heat is really allowing those internal wood structures to really breathe, to really evaporate the beautiful woody nuances. Absolutely amazing stuff. I really, really love wearing it. Again, it really satisfies my wood craving. And that's pretty much it regarding the scent profile. Even if I were to smell my arm right now and try to describe what I'm getting, I would struggle to name this in any other way than just wood. It's obviously a very beautiful, realistic, rich, dense, multifaceted wood, but it's ultimately just wood. And as I was saying before, the scent doesn't really transition, doesn't really evolve much throughout the wear experience. It's incredibly dense, it's incredibly oily, and the scent doesn't really have an opening, a mid-tone, or a dry down. It just stays the same all the time for a very, very long time, but we're going to talk about that in the performance department. The scent overall is very mid to bottom heavy. There's no real zing, there's no real top note, there's nothing like that. It just sits on your skin like an oil. It smells oily, it feels oily, it wears like an oil. You definitely feel kind of oily and greasy, but it just sits there and doesn't really push off the skin, it doesn't really radiate. It just smells like some sort of a scented oil that you rubbed upon your skin. It's really interesting. I barely have any other perfumes that wear like that. Well, actually, all of the fragrances that I have from the brand, they all have this greasy, oily feeling to them. And this is a stark difference from even the highest concentration perfumes that I have in my collection. Stuff like the highest concentration amouages do not feel as oily. They feel a little bit more airy. Maybe because part of that concentrate is aroma chemicals, and that's absolutely fine. I feel that in the Profumum Roma fragrances, the 40% concentration is purely made up by actual oils. It just feels very, very dense. And as I also was saying before, this really affects the wear experience because this scent, other than just sitting on its own in the mid-tone and base of the tonal range, which is absolutely fine, it just doesn't move. It feels stuck into place. It feels glued into place. It really doesn't radiate. It just sits there as an oil. I do really like the scent profile and wear experience. I really came to appreciate this about this fragrance, but I have to confess, I wouldn't mind a little bit more projection, a little bit more airiness, and a little bit more push. Segueing right into the performance department, let's talk about that. The longevity of this is absolutely insane. I get easily 12 hours to 14 hours, maybe 16 hours of wear. Again, this thing does not wash off. It's super, super oily. Now, it wears subtly. When you first spray it on, you're like, wow, the projection on this is really mild. And it just stays like that. It stays and stays and stays. It really never transitions. There's really no opening or dry down, as I was saying before. It just sits in your skin forever, especially in clothes. The clothes will smell like this forever, basically. So beware. Now, going back to that projection, going back to the wear experience for this scent wears incredibly subtle. It's very, very gentle. It's very, very mild. Scent profile-wise and projection-wise, especially projection though. People around you will barely smell this. I doubt it. You can overspray the hell out of this and they will still not smell it just because it doesn't push off the skin. It doesn't evaporate. Now, surprisingly enough, when you just start adding a little bit of heat to this scent, maybe due to exercise or probably due to temperature, and this is actually one of those reasons why I do consider this a little bit more of a summer scent rather than a winter scent, this fragrance kind of comes alive. And I say kind of because it still stays stuck in that oily aspect, but it does get a little bit more personality. The behavior of this is actually really similar to something like Amouage Jubilation 40, that when there is also super dense, it requires a lot of heat to really come alive and to show its face. This one here really never comes alive. It remains kind of dormant, and you have to be massively aware of this because if you purchase this, if you wear this, you have to be aware that the wear experience will be much more subtle, much more intimate. That being said, I really do enjoy wearing this. It's absolutely amazing. When it comes to actual versatility in use cases, especially given the very specific wear experience, this comes across as surprisingly wearable. Again, not many people around you will be smelling this. They really have to come close to you, and at that point they'll be smelling wood, so it's not too bad, not too offensive. The scent profile for this is a little bit weird. It comes across as very realistic, very abstract. It smells literally like a plank of wood. It's not mass appealing, it's not designer, it's not masculine, it's not nothing. And when people eventually will come close and smell this, they will picture a plank of wood. So again, Your mileage may vary. Other than that though, especially given the wear experience, especially given how subtle it is, you can probably wear this in pretty much every situation, casual to elegant, day to night, in pretty much every type of environment. Although I wouldn't necessarily wear this to the gym anymore. It's pretty much a straight up wood scent. It's not really conducive to high energy or high focus required for a workout. This smells like a sauna, and that is a much more relaxing vibe. But again, your mileage may vary. That being said though, it might be really good for yoga or other meditation or relaxation based activities. Other than that, you can pretty much wear this in every situation. It goes really well casual. It goes really well dressed up. It's nice in the evening because again, it's calming, it's relaxing. During the day, especially if there's a little bit of rain, a little bit of fog or atmosphere, this would perfectly hit the spot. When it comes to demographics, everyone can wear this, regardless of gender and age. It's super abstract. It's pretty much straight up a wood scent. You have to be into niche. You have to be into fragrances which depict a very simple concept or ingredient. If you're that type of person, especially if you're that type of person that likes a little bit more of a subtle, intimate scent, this might be exactly what you're looking for. When it comes to imagery and narration, Profumum Roma is a little bit of a mixed bag. A scent like this really transports me to a place and fills it with details. But the other offerings from the house don't really do much for me. If you take something like which is a chocolate gourmand scent, that really has no story, no narration, no imagery, no nothing. And even stuff like Acqua di Sale, which is beautiful, it's evocative of the sea, it really doesn't go much beyond that. The brand of Profumum Roma is not really about narration, it's not really about creative concepts or artistic communication. It's all about showcasing a very direct, simple image in the most photorealistic way possible. And they really succeed at that. These fragrances wear in such a unique way. They are present, they're very detectable, they're very characterful, but you can easily phase them out in the background. They act as surprisingly good signature scents. You could probably daily these and not really get fatigued because they leave so much room for interpretation and just so much room for adaptability. It's a really great aspect of these fragrances. Alright, it's time to showcase some options for my reviewed fragrance. In the case of Profumum Roma Arso, I really wanted to go into the subtle, masculine, woody aspect. And the first fragrance that I want to showcase is by Meo Fusciuni. This one here is Spirito. Now, this takes the whole concept of woodiness in a completely different area. Meo Fusciuni is a master artist, is a master creative, he's a master at narration and communicating. And this fragrance really transports you to another forest full of vetiver, full of memories. He is basically a kid again. He is looking into a pond. He's looking at reflections in the past. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Ultimately, this smells like a very soft, very melancholic, very wearable vetiver fragrance. It's so fine nuanced. I really like diving deep into this fragrance. There's a lot of earthy tones, a lot of green notes, a lot of florals. Very, very soft, very delicate, very beautiful. This is also another one of those subtle, understated wear experiences which really accompany you throughout the day, giving you this sense of wonder. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's so much Giuseppe Imprezzabile in here, so much of his personality, so much of his storytelling. I love wearing this. I love all of the fragrances by Meo Fusciuni. This one here is one of the highlights. It's probably my favorite vetiver fragrances of all time. With my second showcase, we're leaving narration behind and we're going back to very simple, very straightforward fragrances. This one here is especially so. We're talking about L'Absolu's Salvia Bianca. This is pretty much a sage fragrance, a pure sage fragrance with a little bit of a woody component, hence why I chose it. L'Absolu is a brand that I discovered at Excellence 2025. I went to a hotel which is basically housing the brand. They have this beautiful fragrance laboratory with all these raw ingredients and you can literally smell everything in there. Absolutely gorgeous experience. This fragrance specifically really caught my eye because it's a really beautiful portrayal of sage. It's masculine, it's woody, but it's also incredibly delicate. It's very, very well refined. It has a lot of fine nuances, but overall it wears light. Much, much lighter than something like Arso. It's also a lot more simple and straightforward. Arso, within its simplicity, has a lot of detail in there. This one here is much more of a fragrance rather than a smell, and it wears exceedingly well. You can pretty much throw this on, not think about it. You can wear this to the office, to the gym, out and about. It's really, really good. Super versatile stuff. The bigger bottles for these are 125 mLs, and I specifically picked up the bigger size because I really wanted to indulge. I really wanted to engulf myself in this beautiful cloud of wonderful sage with this absolutely gorgeous woody undertone. Overall, the wear experience for this kind of reminds me of Perimonte Carlo. They wear light, they're a little bit fleeting, the longevity is pretty bad, but they're so fun, they're so wearable. Again, you can pretty much throw this on with anything in every situation. It's a really nice change of pace from my heavier fragrances. My last option is a fragrance that I've been talking about quite a bit recently. This one here is Amouage Decision. I decided to showcase this because it's actually fairly comparable to Arso in many ways. It wears in a very similar manner. This one definitely projects a little bit more, but it's still incredibly subtle. And to all of you guys that feel that this is beast mode and that it fills rooms, well, good for you. To me, on my skin, it's very subtle, very timid. It lasts a long time in a very similar way to Arso, but it doesn't really project. I smell it throughout the day, but no one else around me smells it. So again, it's a very comparable wear experience overall. Another comparable aspect to this is that it's fairly woody. It has a woody backbone. It has a woody nuance to it. This is basically a wood vanilla scent. It's way darker than I was expecting it to be, especially when I unboxed it, and if you watch my videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. According to my expectations, this was supposed to be the Amouage Freshie to rule them all. Ultimately, it turned out to be a very dense, very rich vanilla woody fragrance with a lot of Akigala wood, typical Quentin Biche style, the perfumer for this. I don't hate it, I don't love it, I like it. I really came around to appreciating this for what it is. And what it is, it's a very simple Amouage for every day. It kind of smells a little bit woody, a little bit vanilla-y. It's really non-offensive. It doesn't step on anyone's toes. This is pretty much the Amouage for people that don't really like Amouage. And ultimately, I think that this is exactly what they were trying to go for. They're trying to bring more people into the brand, expand their audience, and this is exactly a scent for that. Is it my favorite from the brand? Absolutely not. Is it my scent profile? Not really. I do appreciate it. As I said, I do wear it occasionally. I do like the understated sort of feeling. I'm not a fan of Quentin Biche as a perfume. I really do feel that he's not a good fit for Amouage, but that's a completely different story. Eventually, I'll get around to fully reviewing this and I'll give you my full opinion. But back to Profumum Roma's Arso for my final recommendations and overview. First of all, the house of Profumum Roma. I really like the house. I think it's super unique. It really stands alone in the fragrance space. There's nothing really out there that is similar. The fragrances are super dense, they're really complex, they're really oily. They just last a really long time. And overall, again, despite the high price, I feel like they offer pretty decent bang for buck, especially because they're so insanely unique. I really also like that it's an artisanal house, a family-run house. It's not really polluted by corporate greed or anything like that. And I don't know, I just like supporting small brands that really believe in their cause. Arso specifically is an amazing fragrance. If you're after the ultimate wood fragrance, this is probably it. It's so straightforward, yet so nuanced, so multifaceted. There's so much to uncover. Every time I wear this, I uncover a little bit more. I discover more facets of the fragrance. It changes according to the temperature. It changes according to the humidity. It changes according to your mood. It's so adaptable, so interpretable. All of the Profumum Roma fragrances are that. They're very unique in their wearing. And despite this being a little bit weird, more akin to something like a smell, it's very wearable. You can easily push it into the background and go about your day and just enjoy this amazing woody sillage. Profumum Roma, absolutely amazing house. I'm not really sure if they sell discovery sets or samples. I really haven't looked into that. If you have a chance to get decants, do so. It's really fun, but be sure to set your expectations right. Arso is a very intimate, very subtle, very gentle, very delicate scent. If you like that idea, if you like that concept, if you ever dreamed about smelling like a lumberjack, if you just simply enjoy the smell of the wood aisle at Home Depot, this is a fragrance for you. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. As per usual, many more reviews to come, many more fun fragrances to sample. See you in the next one, and cheers.